Welcome to the Delight Your Marriage podcast. You're joining me, Bella Rose, as I dive deep into the beauty, power, and truths about intimacy. Learn not only the practicals, but the heart behind what making love is all about. Delight your marriage.
All right. Hi, welcome. This is Bella, and thank you for joining me. Today, I am interviewing Jeremiah, and he has got some fantastic truths to share about marriage and intimacy and the things he learned. Now, he is a graduate from the Masculinity Reclaimed program that I mentioned last week.
And
the thing that I love is he shares some of the major shifts he had in his mindset and the things he did, which then impacted his wife. And their marriage and intimacy in it transformed. And I hope that as you listen to him, you'll catch some of the shifts that he specifically made. You'll hear how he loves his wife, and you'll hear how, as a man, he has specific desires, just the way God made him. And because he made the changes he did, she was able to respond to love him well, and even go as far as to do a course herself to continue to love in that way. So let's go ahead and dive in.
I so appreciate you.
And before we do, if you're interested in either my masterclass for women or my masterclass for men, you can go to delightyourmarriage.com/masterclass, and you can select whether or not you're a husband or a wife, and you will get that training. Here it is coming up, just at the end of March. So feel free to do that as soon as you can, because it won't be available for long. So it's going to be delightyourmarriage.com/masterclass.
At the end of March.
God bless. Let's dive in.
And if you have any interest in that, I've got some free training in advance coming up. So what you want to do is go to delightyourmarriage.com/men's training, and then you can sign up for that masterclass, and we will be diving into some really cool content, and all free. So sign up no matter what. And if you do want to join the actual full MR course, then you'll get all the information after that. So sign up for the free masterclass, and then you'll find out more. Okay, so the second reason is because I really love the quote, "You are the 5 people you spend the most time with." It's probably a tad of an exaggeration, but the truth of the matter is who you let into your mind and thoughts, and, who you are opening up to and listening to affects who you are. It affects how you think. So whether it's your family, whether it's your closest friends, that is kind of forming who you are, because it's forming your worldview, et cetera, et cetera. And so Jeremiah went through the program. He, by God's grace, changed a lot of things, and his wife changed in response in really amazing ways, intimately and otherwise. So, but the thing is, just by listening to Jeremiah, his perspectives, what he's learned, it's going to impact you. Whether or not you decide MR course right now is the right one, direction for you, it does take time, it does take energy, it does take effort, but God does really incredible things if you work it. So let's go ahead and dive in to hear what Jeremiah wants to share. And I do ask him specifically, what were some of the biggest lessons you got from the program? So you're going to get some of that content right in this interview. All right, let's go ahead and dive in.
All right. So excited, Jeremiah. Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. Well, so you did the Masculinity Reclaimed program, and maybe let's start out by just getting a feel of how your marriage was at that point, and if you're open to it, what your intimacy was like at that time.
Yeah. So I wouldn't describe my marriage as being in a particularly bad place. as I've looked back over the last couple of months, I think if anyone would have come up to me and asked, how is your marriage? I would have said, I think we're doing pretty well, like 7, 8-ish territory. Been married for over 15 years. And so I feel like we've gotten to a place where we really know one another and learned how one another thinks and, able to finish one another's sentences, that sort of thing. And I think probably for the last, really for the last 12 or 13 years, just being in a place as far as sexual intimacy goes, like not at a place of and I don't know if fulfillment is the right word, but being in a place where I'm like, there's something else more to this, like to the extent that we are one with one another in our relationship. Like I feel like there's more that we need to experience together. And then also knowing in the last, I really caused some hurt to my wife in the first couple of years that we've probably spent a decade working out of, really just unkind words. Unkind words towards her, and that really wounded her. And in her mind, she would always go back to that spot. So as far as intimacy goes, like, we would, we would still have sex a couple times a week. But for me, it was always kind of, I'll call it vanilla. It was vanilla sex. And my wife was hesitant and maybe even scared to do anything else, because there was always that thought, well, if I do more, then he's going to expect more. And so for me, it was like, okay, how do there's something missing here. Our marriage is overall pretty good, but yet there's this level of dissatisfaction. So there has to be more of something that I'm missing. So hopefully that helps. Does that kind of explain where we were?
Yeah, for sure. And so what do you think was the tipping point for you to say, you know what, I'm going to do the MR program?
So we had recently had another child. And I think before that child, our intimacy in my category, though dissatisfied, there were still some things that we were progressing towards, right? But post that child, things are really slow, and I knew they were going to be slow. Like mature enough to know that's a hard thing for a woman's body to go through. And so, like 6, 7, 8 months later, like this, we need some help, but it's probably not a good time to ask my wife about this. I need to do some exploring on my own to figure out what I need to do. So then that's when I've been listening to some podcasts on the topic of intimacy from a Christian perspective. And that's when I found your podcast and really just stumbled upon it. And then I'm like, you know what? This sounds like something that I need to try. And listened to the first introductory video into the program, and I was taken by how serious you were with a relationship with God and forgiveness. And like, this wasn't just me saying or doing the right things. This was integrating holistically. It's a holistic integration of body, mind, soul, all into one thing, and deep interconnection with God. And at the time, I was understanding even how to be a joyful person. I've known Jesus for 15 years of my life, but like, really, am I really a joyful person? And so all that kind of meshed in together. I feel like at one of the most integral moments of my life where I've been learning some things about myself. I mean, I don't know how far this is going into me being too personal, but I'm like, I read a book on narcissism. And I'm like, oh my gosh, am I a narcissist? You know, and to some degree of what I'm learning about it, we all have narcissistic tendencies. And it's like, okay, knowing my weakness and how the weaknesses that I have, how do I emotionally manipulate to get what I want? And I'm like, maybe I've been doing that in my marriage. And there were some things that my wife was saying at the time about how I would listen and respond. I'm like, I think there's something to that. And like really exploring deeply, having a deep look into myself, saying, I really need some help understanding more of what's going on. Maybe it isn't all my wife. And so all those things kind of came in at one moment. And that's what really led me down the path to the program.
Amazing. That's incredible. I didn't know a lot of that, Jeremiah. So just having the
well, I had to type it out. I had to type all that out, and that would have taken me a long time.
That's right. That's incredible, though. I love that. The focus shifted from what is she not doing to, gosh, she must have stuff, right? But what can I do to shift things? So tell me, during the program, what were, I guess it's a two-part question. The first part is, what were some major takeaways? What were some major concepts that someone listening could say, gosh, I need to start implementing that right away?
I can't remember exactly. I think this was right at the very beginning, and I don't know exactly the things that you were teaching on, but I realized that I had gotten out of my marriage what I'd put into it, and like, wow, like intimacy is a little low. Yeah, I haven't given emotional intimacy. I haven't done a good job with that. So kind of makes sense that this is an area of our life that is that there's a deficit. I remember having a conversation with my wife on a date night, telling her, like, I'm so sorry. Like, this is an area that I've noticed. And that really even was a launching pad of sorts for the next thing that came up, which was a big takeaway for me, was emotional vulnerability. I feel like I'm generally a vulnerable person with everyone but my wife. Yeah. And I'm like, why is that? Like, seriously, I would have this conversation with myself and why can I say things to other people, coworkers, other people that I lead, that I have a hard time saying to my wife? And, as one of my favorite theologians over time talks about how I basically was afraid of getting scared, hurt of getting scared, or scared of getting hurt.
Yeah.
And when you open yourself up, when you're completely vulnerable, it's at that moment that you can really be hurt. And we really not in a pattern of hurting one another, but there was always this, if I said something that she disagreed with, or she said something that I disagreed with, I had a physical reaction of, I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to have the conversation. So learning how to communicate was very helpful for me. Learning how to be vulnerable, learning how to have 15 minutes of conversation in which I just listen, right? In which I practice my I practice my listening skills. I practice my nonverbal and verbal feedback, right? And really, like, we started doing that, and she opened up a lot, and began to be emotionally vulnerable with me, and at one point told me, your ability the way that we've been able to communicate really has opened myself up to you. And, that's kind of stuff that you long to hear. Or at least that's the kind of stuff that I long to hear my wife say.
Yeah.
I want us to have the kind of vulnerable, open communication wherein we're not afraid at all of one another. And I know, and I knew then, and I even know now that that's habits, that's patterns. If I can establish those now and keep doing it, then that's going to continue to bring fruit and rewards. But from the past, it had evidence, those habits had evidenced themselves to a place where we couldn't be open, vulnerable with one another. Like she would need to go talk with her best friend about what she was struggling with. And, I would just randomly tell whoever I was talking to, who was a decent friend. I don't talk to strangers that way. Stay away from strangers. Strangers are dangerous, right? No, I'm kidding. So I think those are some of the big takeaways for me. Some of the things I realized.
Amazing. And you mentioned this just a tad already, but what would you say from some of those shifts in habits, those shifts, what did you see happening in your marriage and even in your intimacy?
Yeah, as far as intimacy goes, it was a slow change, like very, very slow. Even in the middle of the program, we had an anniversary trip that we went on. And again, part of the program is you stop initiating sex, give a moment where she can choose whether or not she wants that. And that was very helpful, the pat on the butts and, all the touching. I like to do that to my wife. I love my wife. I like her body. And so that was really hard for me to do that. Doing that, and even in the middle of that trip, it was very slow. Like I wouldn't say there was any sort of progress. But as things opened up, like she began to initiate, and she even told me one time, like, you realize you can ask me to have sex, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I can do that, but I need to talk to Bella first. I don't know if this is okay. And then little by little, her entering into a program because of what she had seen in me, that opened her up to work on some of the issues that she had. Bella, now I'm seeing things in our intimacy that I can only hope for. I'd always hoped for.
Wow.
And so it's, last couple of weeks, speechless, really. So it's like, things that the way that we're engaging one another, in the way that she's engaging me.
Wow.
And if I'm being honest, some of the times I would listen to the other guys say this, that you would have testimonials. I'm like, are they paid actors? I would ask that, but it's like now, like I know that for sure that this is a thing. And I'm seeing, 1 Peter 3:7, live with your wife in an understanding way. And I feel like I'm beginning to more understand her and understand how she thinks and how to emotionally engage her, and that is producing fruit in the intimacy area. And I can be more specific if you want me to, but just generally, like, it's incredible.
Wow. Well, it's totally up to you what you feel your wife would also be comfortable with, but I'm sure those listening would be like, what is he talking about? So it's up to you what you want to share.
I think it's when you first get married, you're always like, we're gonna have sex multiple times a day, and then whenever you get married, you're like, I'm too tired, or I can't do that, or just this week, we had made love, and it was great. It was after a date night, and it was great. And then an hour or so later, she wakes me up and like cuddles up. She's like, "Hey, I'm kind of turned on. You want to go again?" I'm like, "Who are you? And where is my wife?" And I'm like, "Wow, okay, sure." Never say never, or never say no, right? And so, and then for my birthday, she approached me, and my birthday was a couple weeks ago, and she said, I'd like to give you a penny for your birthday." And I'm like, I feel like time just stopped. And and then of course I act like a little boy. I'm like, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jeremiah. So if you are a listener who is curious if you might be the right fit, my encouragement is just to take the first step and go ahead and enroll in the masterclass. Totally free, lots of amazing content. And from Jeremiah, what he shared, it's a very holistic approach that you'll really get a chance to find out is something like Masculinity Reclaimed, something that you're going to invest money in, but time and effort and energy. And yeah, it does require those things. But maybe God is wanting you to take a step of faith and say, you know what? It's been decades, but gosh, could things really change? And actually decide to do it, to really do the work and see what God might do. Who knows? Maybe you'll transform your marriage just like Jeremiah did, even though he was the only one who did the work. So yeah, join me on the masterclass, the men's training. Just go to delightyourmarriage.com/men's training and sign up. Let's do this. Let's get transformation in your marriage. No matter what, the free training is going to be awesome. All right. God bless you. And I really look forward to this next step in your journey, moving closer to Jesus and potentially transforming your marriage. All right. We'll talk next week. God bless. Bye.